no plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Fighter like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending. We got no plans.
This is a Moment of Clarity interview from LeeCamp.net. This is my discussion with Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. You may know them from current TV or as the most watched news channel on all of YouTube. So check that out if you get a chance. But this is my interview with Cenk Uygur. So I'm going to join the Young Turks YouTube channel. Is this a low point in your career that you've gotten to this point?
Well, I was trying to avoid it at all costs, but then it turned out that there was no way around it. No, we're excited, man. I think it's good. I love your channel, and I think that it's part of our strong voice.
Cool, thank you. I saw you have a documentary coming up about your adventure in MSNBC.
Yeah, that's partly what it's about, and it's about, the whole rise of the Young Turks, meaning like the whole show and the audience and what it represents. So we're pretty excited about it. Some parts that I'm a little uncomfortable with, but, sad day for me. It was an independent filmmaker who made it, so it's an interesting story.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't done by you. It's someone else who just thought it'd be a great story.
Well, it's a combination. It was a guy who worked for us. That's why he had access to us, and he was taping everything. And then he decided to quit here and make the movie.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so, there were some parts that I wish weren't in the movie.
Yeah.
But it's a great movie, though. It's a real movie.
So I guess this leads into, I don't know, just an analysis of the media in general. I mean, do you there's things that it feels like can't be said in so many outlets. There's only a few where you're allowed to say them. Do you feel that way?
Definitely, no question about it. I mean, it's part of the whole point of the Young Turks is that when people turn on TV, they feel that it's fake. There's a million things that people can't say. Number 2 issue according to the polls in the 2012 election was corruption. It was never mentioned during any of the debates, by any of the media, by any of the candidates. Just the number 1 issue was jobs, and then number 2 issue in the country totally and utterly ignored because it's not kosher to talk about our politicians being bought off and being corrupt. To say that on TV when it clearly is.
Do you feel that's the number 1 issue in the sense that we could have jobs if we had politicians that weren't corrupt?
Of course. No, look, it's in the real world, in terms of how it affects every other issue, it's overwhelmingly the number 1 issue. Because whether it's climate change, it's our budget mess, it's anything, you name the topic, and it is decided by money, it's not decided by voters. For example, we just had an election where the voters clearly said, don't mess with our Medicare and Social Security. The Republicans ran an election saying Obama's going to mess with your Medicare, right? Right. And and what happens? Right after the election, both sides agree, oh, well, obviously we'll cut Medicare. Wait, you guys were just battling over how you guys weren't going to cut Medicare. So now, after the election's over, who wins? The money people win, and nobody gives a damn about what the voters thought. The whole point of Obama's election was, hey, share the pain. Rich should be taxed a little bit more, And now we're having a conversation about, well, it should be. And by the way, Obama's plan was 3-to-1. That's not balanced, right? Right. And by the way, they're also going to cut corporate taxes in this grand bargain that they do. So wait a minute, why are we cutting taxes on corporations? And after the campaign, Obama's main manager, David Plouffe, talked about how, well, actually, eventually in a deal, we could cut taxes on the rich. I said, cut taxes on the rich? We just had a whole election about it, right? So it doesn't really matter what we believe because money runs the politicians. It's the number 1 issue by a mile.
So then I guess third parties would be a pretty attractive option, but they're hardly even talked about. And when they show up to a debate, they're arrested. So.
That's true. That happened to Jill Stein. Look, third parties are a tough battle because you can't get traction in the media. Right. And without traction in the media, it's super hard to get traction with the voters. And part of the reason for that is, again, money in politics. So if you had, for example, public financing of elections, which is one facet of getting money out of politics, right. Then they have to go and raise money $100 at a time at most from real citizens.
Right.
In which case the playing field is balanced. So all of a sudden, it's not one millionaire versus another millionaire, or one billionaire-backed candidate versus another billionaire-backed candidate. Anybody can go and raise a small amount of money, get matching funds, and everybody's in the ballgame, whether it's the Green Party or the Tea Party. And that's the way democracy should be.
Moving on to another form of corruption, I see you have Greg Palast, billionaires, and ballot bandits over there.
Yeah.
He's now estimating that 9.3 million votes were lost in this election, but I guess it doesn't matter because the Democrats won, right?
Well, look, you know...
That's how it feels, how people view it. It's like, as long as the Democrats win, doesn't matter if that many votes were lost.
It's funny, somebody else just wrote an article about how people say, well, we spent $6 billion in the election, but I guess money didn't matter much because the Democrats won.
Right.
No. Half of that money went to the Democrats.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
President Obama outraised Mitt Romney. They both raised over $1 billion.
Yeah.
There's this understandable confusion that they think like, oh, okay, Democratic Party doesn't care about money, or the Republican Party is the pro-money party. Mm-hmm. So if the Democrats won, then everything must be all right. This is not the case at all. That's exactly why right now they're doing this incredibly unbalanced grand bargain talks, where President Obama's position is largely the Republican position, and the Republican position is the insanely radical position.
Yeah.
And it's because money has mattered. Now, on the votes, look, the Democratic Party, they fought back this time around substantially, maybe not necessarily enough, on all the voter ID laws, the early voting being curtailed, etc. But this is a core constitutional issue. That fight should start today, not in a panic right before the elections.
Right.
And when they didn't back Acorn, when all they did was help poor people register to vote, among other things. I think more importantly, they helped poor people, fight against slum landlords. When they could when they wouldn't turn the heat on, etc. Right.
Yeah.
And when the Democrats threw them under a bus. They showed you, man.
It was insane that all it took was a trick video edited in a ridiculous way to take down the entire organization because the politicians were so really willing to throw them under the bus after.
No, it's absolutely true, but also think about the power of money in another way. If a Democratic or a liberal or progressive organization made a trick video like that, it would get no traction.
Right.
For whatever reason, the establishment press, etc., wouldn't care that much. And so is it conceivable like that the Heritage Foundation or something else like that could be taken down by a trick video done by some guy, some two-bit guy who's a total fraud? Mm-hmm. It's inconceivable, right? Inconceivable. Right. I mean, you could get them on tape saying the most hideous things, and they won't get taken down. And because it's an uneven playing field. Right. It's like people think, oh, Heritage Foundation, as an example, is a think tank, right? And the ideas that they come up with and the policy papers that they write are so important. And that if they win, it's because their ideas won. No such thing. All it is it's an excuse to vote the way that the money told you to vote, right? Yeah, so it's not like there's a politician weighing, well, on the one hand, Heritage Foundation said this, and on the other hand, Rachel Maddow said this. No, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They just go, great, I got an excuse. Here's the Heritage Foundation with a policy paper. It's very legitimate and official. Yeah. A couple of doctors wrote it, and so good enough.
And the semantics they come up with, just the phrases that we're using in our discussions, like right to work. Like, why isn't the left calling it the No Rights for Workers Act or something? Like, something that, rather than running around saying right to work over and over and over again, it's...
Yeah, I mean, usually the Democrats get steamrolled on that stuff, and, lately they've been a little bit better. Like, the war on women was good framing for all the legislation that was literally designed to take away women's rights, women's equal pay, etc. So they've gotten a little better on that, but at the same time, I just think overall the point of the Democrats is to lose. And so, and I'm serious about that. And I don't mean politically, because they win plenty politically, right?
Yeah.
I mean policy-wise. It's good cop, bad cop. And they're the good cops, and they're supposed to say, oh, I wish there was something I could do, but my partner over here, he's crazy, man.
Right.
So you better sign that confession right away, because otherwise, you don't want to see what the bad cops do to you, right?
Yeah.
So what the system does is money flows to really strong right-wing Republicans, and it flows to really weak, conciliatory Democrats.
Right.
So it's not an accident that the most soft-spoken person in America, Harry Reid, is the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. It is, if the money didn't flow to Harry Reid, it is inconceivable that in a normal democracy, I mean, forget what you think about his policies, his principles, etc., right? That a man that, let's just talk about the optics, that a person who seems so weak, and I believe his legislation, etc., is weak, right?
Yeah.
But for him to be the leader of a national Democratic Party in the Senate is inconceivable. And how that happens is that's, you know, the people that are the big power brokers in the Democratic Party that also have a lot to gain from lower taxes, etc., say that's our guy.
So you're saying our entire political structure is the Hannity and Colmes show?
You know, I never thought about it that way. That's great. That's totally true. And I feel bad for Alan Colmes every time I say that because he's such a decent, great guy.
But his job was to lose.
But yeah.
On that show.
Right. And they're like, oh, look, do you want to be like this guy or stud Sean Hannity? You know?
All right. Well, I know you got a lot of work, so I'll let you go. But thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Lee. I appreciate it.
No plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Fighter like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretend.